It was a dark and rainy evening at around 11:30 p.m. Young Ethan was driving down from Seattle, Washington to San Francisco, California for a business trip the very next day. As Ethan was driving down the lonely, deserted, isolated, dark and gloomy interstate road, it began to rain very heavily. As the rain started to downpour, Ethan could barely see in front of him. Ethan turned on his windshield wipers, but still Ethan could not see 2 feet in front of him. As Ethan was trying to remain focused on the road, Ethan heard honking as a large transport truck was heavily approaching Ethan's car. Ethan tried to swerve out of the way of the transport truck, but winded up in a ditch on the side of the road. Ethan was momentarily unconscious as he sat in his car. Ethan woke up minutes later realizing that he had been driven off the road by the transport truck. Ethan realized that he needed to go find a motel room for the remainder of the night. Ethan drove his car out of the ditch and continued to drive straight forward down the interstate road. Ethan kept a lookout for a motel on the side of the road. Ethan continued to drive as Ethan saw this eerie-looking motel that hadn't looked like it hadn't been in business since the 1960s. Ethan decided to pull into the motel as there were no cars in the parking lot and there were no lights on. Ethan got out of his car and Ethan walked into the main office. There was nobody there. Ethan tapped the motel bell until he turned around and there was a woman standing there. It was the motel manager.
Hello there, it's raining awfully heavy out there, isn't it?
The woman had rotten teeth. Her breath smelled like decaying flesh as she smiled uncomfortably at Ethan. Ethan looked at her nervously. Yeah. I'm actually looking for a room just till morning. I'm actually going down to San Francisco for a business trip. How much would a room be till morning? Ethan asked the motel manager.
One room for the night. I'll take $50 for you.
That will be terrific. I'm going to be gone early in the morning. I gotta get down to San Francisco anyways. As Ethan placed down a fresh $50 bill on the motel countertop. As the motel manager placed the $50 bill in the cash register, the motel manager gave Ethan his room key as Ethan took the motel key from her, and Ethan walked out of the motel manager's office down towards his room. Ethan opened up his motel door as Ethan placed his bag down on the floor, and as he took off his clothes, and as he got into the mattress and turned off the lamp, and as he was beginning to close his eyes, he saw something very strange and odd outside his motel window approaching. He saw this very grotesque, ugly, evil-looking creature peering in through the window. Ethan jumped out of his bed. Jeez! What the hell was that? Ethan said, jumping out of his bed, startled. Ethan was assuming that he was delusional from the lack of sleep and that he was seeing things. As Ethan went back to bed and was trying to forget about what he just saw, he began to see even more disturbing and unraveling things as these demonic-looking creatures were peering in through the window. Ethan didn't know what to do, but he knew one thing. He wasn't sure what he was seeing. As the night persisted to the early hours of the morning, Ethan decided that he had enough. Ethan wasn't sure what he was seeing, and Ethan wanted to check out as soon as possible. Ethan picked up his bag, and as he was trying to check out of his motel, he couldn't open his door. As Ethan was hearing the sounds of construction workers outside of the motel, he looked at the window as he saw 6 construction workers demolishing the motel grounds. As Ethan wasn't sure what was going on, the motel manager peered up behind him
this motel room, Ethan. Those construction workers are here to tear down this abandoned motel. You've been dead the entire time, and this is your purgatory?
Yeah, right, lady. I'm not dead. I know I survived that collision. I'm not dead. Okay? As Ethan began banging on the motel window, trying to alert any of the construction workers working outside, but they could not hear or see him, as Ethan was a ghost. Help me! Help me! Ethan screamed at the top of his lungs. The construction workers still could not hear or see him, as they still carried on with their work demolishing the abandoned motel. The motel manager began laughing as she began decaying even more, and the motel room set on fire.